really take it to the U.S. Supreme Court because it's an Illinois law and an Illinois court. You can go to the federal courts, which is what they're doing in East St. Louis and Naperville in the 7th Judicial Circuit. Our case, because it was about the Illinois Constitution, the constitutionality, and we argued several things, the three-day reading, and we argued the Second Amendment to a certain extent. There's no place else to go, except that 2 of the judges in the Illinois Supreme Court accepted over $1 million each from Governor Pritzker. They accepted hundreds of thousands of dollars from Speaker Welch. And now we're finding out that their campaigns were supported by this secret PAC that Senate President Harmon, his lawyer, controlled, who didn't even report the donation.
Kat, you know about this, Kat.
I know this.
Kat, you know about this a little bit, right?
So
she did.
That money went into these 2 Supreme Court races. Our point is that we didn't get a fair hearing. That's how we went to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Go you!
Yeah. So we went to the U.S. Supreme Court saying, "Look, we asked these 2 judges to recuse themselves before we ever heard my case."
That's right.
We sent them letters. Each
yes.
one.
No, I remember it. Yeah. No, you covered that, Kat.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
And they sent back a little snarky response that they don't have to.
No, well, they don't, because they have proven over time right now that they do whatever they please.
Exactly. But our legal strategy was such that we set this up. We set this up before they ever heard our case.
Look at you.
Yeah.
That's smart.
This is our legal strategy.
Go you, Dan Caulkins.
Who is going to get a fair hearing in Illinois on a gun bill?
I didn't know about the super PAC.
Well, who? Yeah.
That's incredible.
In Illinois, based on the political climate, how many times will we get anything heard? Whether it's a bill positioned in the House, the Senate, they've got the old equivalent. The old saying is they can run the table. It's like that they don't even have an opponent.
You have just argued our case.
Yes.
So our case is based on 3 things at the U.S. Supreme Court. The legal precedent is called Caperton. And the Caperton case was settled in the U.S. Supreme Court when a person named Caperton had a case before a judge, and the person that he was suing had donated $1,000 to that judge's election campaign, and there were outside groups also supporting that person with the judge. Mm-hmm. He took that case to the U.S. Supreme Court, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, that's not fair. That's not equal justice. That judge was biased. Send that case back. And that's where Caperton comes from.
And Caperton, for those in our audience, is spelled Caperton. I'm actually looking at the case right now, Caperton, and with Massey Coal Company. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. In 2009, it gives the standing number and everything else. United States Supreme Court held due process clause of the
So Massey Coal Company had given this judge $1,000, not $500,000, not $1 million, $1,000. And the Supreme Court found that the judge was the appearance of impropriety was such that they sent that case back on Caperton.
In fact, it says here, and I'm reading it, it says it requires the judges to recuse themselves not only when actual bias has been demonstrated or when the judge has an economic interest in the outcome of the case, but also when extreme facts create the probability of a bias.
Thank you.
There you go.
Go get them. Well, you guys are playing like 4D chess over there. Your attorney. He's playing like 4D chess
but
over
even then, Kat.
So there's 3.
Go ahead.
There's 3 elements to our Supreme Court case. One is the contributions from the other co-equal branches of government. So we have the governor and the executive branch has given $1 million to each of these candidates. Yeah. Then we have the legislative branch where the 2 leaders,
which is like you giving me $1,000 when the governor gives away $1 million.
Yeah. So then we have the 2 leaders of the legislative branch giving hundreds and hundreds. And now we find out millions of dollars through that super PAC. That secret
Don
PAC.
Harmon and what's the other legislator?
Well, it's his attorney.
Oh.
It was his attorney that ran the PAC. that when they got found out, they emptied the pack, so there wasn't any money in it. But what the gentleman didn't know was the law changed, and he is now personally liable for that fine from the State Board of Elections.
Boom.
Dan's getting geared up. I might have to find the dump button here. Hold on. Let me make sure I have the dump button.
That's an okay word for air.
Okay.
You can say,
hyphenated? Is that a hyphenated word?
Well, you can say that on the air, but keep going. I mean,
so our case is based on three different facts. One is the preponderance of campaign donations from the other two branches of government now influences the judicial branch. The other part of it is that these outside groups, the Moms Demand Action and Bloomberg Group, and there was a couple of other groups that not only endorsed, promoted these two candidates, two judges, and then after the election crowed about their biggest accomplishment in that election was getting these two Supreme Court justices elected in an anti-gun platform.
Wow.
Okay. And then the third case is my Second Amendment rights. But it's a three-legged stool that we've gone to the U.S. Supreme Court on.
Nice.
And there's a reason that the DPB show in its origination said that Illinois is broken, and that corruption is what we like to talk about here. I mean, it's not that I like to talk about corruption, but it's so easy. You have been steeped in it as a state representative. The thing I find fascinating about you, Dan Caulkins, I mean, and it's no secrets here. Dan and I are very close friends.
Yeah.
We've been on the campaign trail for Darren Bailey. We've been on the campaign trail for his own campain. Correct. I walked in a parade out in Aerosmith, Ellsworth for him many moons ago when I got
some heat for that, by the way.
Well, of course you do. You have the Insurrection Radio supporting you. Now the Insurrectionist is going to be on the ballot in the 17th congressional district as a Trump delegate. So I'm sure that all of those people's heads are already exploding, and there's a lot of things. But my point being about you, Dan, is this: you're at the end of your career in the General Assembly.
One more year.
And you continue to fight for the people in Illinois, not only the people of the 88th district, but the people of the entire state of Illinois. You should be applauded for that, because that's what representation is about. Now, I know, Dan, that as you wind down in your career, you've seen pretty much everything that you're going to see, or have you? What else do you think's coming down the pipe besides the gun ban? The whole craziness of opening the borders, it appears to be that JB is trying to make new citizens. I don't even know the terminology they call them now. It's just bottom line is, at the end of the day, is these people are here in our country and they came through our border illegally. And unfortunately, that's not what Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, that's not how Governor Pritzker is referring to them. I mean, there's a lot more that's going to come down the pipe.
Well, they're doing that because it's a fundraiser.
Yeah.
And they're fundraising off the federal government, which is us.
Yeah.
They want the federal government to give them more money so they can dole it out to their buddies. And that's really what this is all
or
about.
To Supreme Court justices. I mean, bottom line is they just are doling out the money to everybody. And that's what we need to do. We need to be that voice. Obviously, we have you down in Springfield raising Cain and letting your voice be heard. Now, granted, sometimes, unfortunately, with the makeup of the super minority that you're in, you're constantly losing loudly. But it doesn't mean you give up.
No.
And I don't think any of us can give up. In fact, I understand now the race in the 88th district between Regan and Chuck Erickson. That's a safe seat. The District 53, a state Senate seat, safe seat. The 105th, safe seat. We've got a lot of safe seats. What can we do? And I know we're going to go to a break, because you've been around this enough to get a gist of what are some of the next steps for Illinois, if we're going to ever turn this thing back around, because it's definitely going in reverse. The clown car going in reverse at hyper warp speed right now. If we're going to at least slow the clown car down a little bit, what are some of the things we have to do, especially when it's not about these safe seats? How are we going to get the messaging out there? Because as my friend Dan Bongino says on his show, it's just not bad enough yet.
And I caught a lot of flack for that. I said that last year after the election. I said it's obviously not bad enough because people are still voting for the folks that are enslaving them, are taxing them out of their homes, are killing the good paying jobs in this state. And I don't know how bad it has to get. I think it's going to come sooner than later, though.
Well, Dan, I wouldn't let you off the radio today and the DPB show without getting, because you're here in studio, you're wearing your Dan Caulkins State Representative sweatshirt, but you also have a couple buttons promoting your candidate for the race in the 88th. And I want to give you an opportunity to talk a little bit about Regan and the candidacy and why you think she is the person to replace you. And granted, I mean, is replacing. I mean, we have a replacement theory all over the place, but we're going to talk more about that when we come back here at Cities 92, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.
And beyond.
And beyond.